Welcome to our deep dive into this fascinating world of ontology-driven AI agents. We've got a whole stack of really interesting sources about this corner of AI where things get really, really interesting because we're talking about AI that doesn't just, crunch data.
Mm.
It actually understands the concepts and the relationships within a specific field.
Yeah, that's right. It's like moving from a calculator to like a colleague who can actually understand your business.
Okay, I love that analogy.
Yeah.
But let's break it down a bit. What exactly is an ontology in this context? It sounds a little bit academic.
Well, think of an ontology as a detailed map of a very specific knowledge domain. But it's not just any map. It shows all the key concepts, how they're all connected, and the rules that actually govern them. So we were talking about like a financial ontology. It would define things like assets, liabilities, transactions, and how they all relate to each other.
So it's like a blueprint that an AI agent can use to make sense of a particular field. Instead of just seeing raw data, it has a framework for understanding what that data actually means.
Precisely. And that's really where the power of ontology-driven AI comes in. This deeper understanding unlocks a whole bunch of benefits that just aren't possible with those traditional data-driven models.
Like what? Just give me some examples of how this actually plays out, like in practice.
Well, one of the most important benefits is improved decision-making. Let's take healthcare as an example. Imagine an AI system that's helping doctors diagnose their patients. If it's just relying on data, it might miss subtle connections or even make dangerous mistakes.
It'd be like trying to diagnose a patient based on their symptoms alone, without understanding the underlying medical knowledge.
Exactly. But with an ontology, the AI agent can actually access a whole network of medical knowledge. It understands the relationships between symptoms, diseases, treatments, and even individual patient histories. That means it can help doctors make more accurate and informed decisions.
So it's not just about analyzing data, it's about applying knowledge and reasoning to that data. It's
Hmm.
almost like having an AI medical consultant working alongside the human doctors.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And the same principle applies across all sorts of industries. Imagine AI agents that can help with financial planning or optimize supply chains or even automate those complex regulatory compliance tasks.
Okay, that's starting to paint a really exciting picture. But I'm also wondering about the challenges. Building these ontologies sounds like a massive undertaking. Where do you even begin?
You're right, it can be complex. It involves carefully defining all the key concepts and relationships within a particular domain. You need experts who really understand the field and can articulate that knowledge in a structured way.
So it's not just a technical task. It also requires a deep understanding of the subject matter. That sounds like it could be a real bottleneck.
It can be, and it's not just a one-time thing either. Ontologies need to be constantly updated and refined as new information emerges and the world changes. That's where things can get a bit tricky.
So it's not just about building the ontology, it's about maintaining it and keeping it relevant over time. That sounds like a lot of work, especially for complex fields that are constantly evolving.
Absolutely. And there's another challenge that we need to consider. Even with a well-designed ontology, there's always the risk of what we call um, brittleness.
Brittleness, what does that mean in this context?
It means that the AI agent is limited by what's explicitly defined in the ontology. If it encounters a situation or a piece of information that's not in the ontology, it might not know what to do.
So it's like having a map that only shows certain roads. If you go off-road, you're on your own.
Precisely.
Yeah.
That's why it's so important to design ontologies that are flexible and adaptable enough to handle new information in unexpected situations.
So there's a real balancing act here.
Yeah.
You want an ontology that's comprehensive enough to capture the essential knowledge, but also flexible enough to adapt to the real world.
Exactly. And that's why ontology-driven AI is such an exciting and evolving field. There's still a lot of research and development happening to address these challenges and unlock the full potential of this technology.
This has already given me a much better grasp of what ontology-driven AI is all about. But I'm eager to hear about some real-world examples. In part 2, let's dive into some specific case studies to see how this technology is actually being used today.
Welcome back to our deep dive. Last time we really unpacked those fundamentals of ontology-driven AI, exploring how these structured knowledge maps, actually enhance AI's reasoning and decision-making capabilities.
Yeah, and we also touched on some of the challenges, right? Like the complexity of building those ontologies and the need for flexibility to handle the ever-changing real world.
Right. Now let's kind of shift gears and see how this technology is actually making a real-world impact with some pretty fascinating case studies. I think you'll be surprised by the variety of applications.
Okay, I'm ready for some aha moments. Hit me with your best case study.
Okay, let's start with the pharmaceutical industry, where precision and efficiency are absolutely critical. There's a great case study of a company that used this ontology-based approach to completely revamp its supply chain.
Pharmaceuticals and supply chains. That sounds like a recipe for complexity. How do they even begin to tackle that with ontologies?
Well, they started by creating an ontology that mapped out their entire supply chain from start to finish. This included everything from raw materials and those manufacturing processes to distribution networks and even patient data.
So they created like a digital twin of their entire operation powered by this ontology. I'm picturing a giant interconnected web of information.
That's a great way to visualize it. And this interconnectedness is key. Instead of having data siloed in different systems, they had a single unified model that everyone could access and understand.
Okay, so they've got this comprehensive ontology. What did they actually do with it? How did it improve their operations?
Well, for starters, it made data analysis lightning fast. They could ask really complex questions about inventory levels or those production bottlenecks or potential disruptions and actually get answers in seconds.
That's a game changer in an industry where time is often of the essence.
Exactly. But it wasn't just about speed. The ontology also enabled them to do things that were simply impossible before. For example, they could simulate the impact of a hypothetical disruption, like a natural disaster or a supplier going offline.
So they could run what-if scenarios and develop contingency plans before a crisis even hit. That's incredible.
It is. And it allowed them to proactively identify and mitigate risks, making their entire supply chain more resilient and reliable.
Okay, that's one powerful example. What other industries are seeing success with this approach?
Let's jump to a completely different field. Maritime operations. Remember how we talked about the importance of domain expertise when building ontologies? Well, the maritime world, with its specialized language and complex rules, is a perfect example of where this really shines.
Maritime operations. That brings to mind images of cargo ships, bustling ports, and maybe even a few pirates. What role does AI play in that world?
Well, one area where ontology-driven AI is making waves is in vessel traffic management. Imagine trying to monitor the movement of thousands of ships in real time, each with its own route cargo and potential hazards.
That sounds like an organizational nightmare.
It can be. But researchers have developed maritime ontologies that capture all the key information about ships, ports, navigation rules, weather conditions, and even security threats.
So it's like having a digital command center that can track every ship and anticipate potential problems before they occur.
Exactly. And that's exactly what they're doing. Ontology-driven AI systems are being used to optimize shipping routes, improve safety, and even prevent accidents.
That's pretty impressive. So we've got ontologies streamlining pharmaceutical supply chains and managing global shipping routes. Are there any other areas where this technology is proving its worth?
Hmm. Let's talk about something a little closer to home. Urban planning and logistics cities are incredibly complex systems with constant flows of people, goods, and information.
I can imagine. Just thinking about rush hour traffic gives me a headache.
Right. But what if we could use AI to make cities more efficient, sustainable, and livable? That's the goal of many urban planning initiatives.
And where do ontologies fit into this picture?
Well, researchers are using ontologies to model all the different aspects of a city. This includes transportation networks, energy grids, building infrastructure, and even social dynamics.
It's like creating a digital blueprint of the entire city, capturing all the interconnected pieces that make it function.
Exactly. And with this comprehensive model, they can start to run simulations and test different scenarios. For example, they can explore the impact of new transportation policies, optimize traffic flow, or even design smarter energy grids.
So instead of just reacting to problems, they can proactively design solutions and make cities more efficient and sustainable.
Precisely. And it's not just about efficiency. They can also use these models to improve quality of life by reducing noise pollution, optimizing green spaces, or even creating more equitable access to resources.
Okay, I'm starting to see the potential of ontology-driven AI to not just solve problems, but to actually shape a better future. This is getting me really excited about the possibilities.
And there's one more case study I want to share that kind of takes this idea of shaping the future to a whole other level. It involves a company called Palantir, which has fully embraced the power of ontologies for something they call enterprise decision automation.
Palantir, I've heard of them. They're known for their work in data analytics and intelligence. How does that connect to ontologies?
Well, Palantir believes that to make truly informed decisions, you need a unified model of your entire organization. That's where ontologies come in. They've built their platform around what they call the Palantir ontology.
So instead of just analyzing data in isolation, they've created an ontology that represents the entire organization. Sounds incredibly ambitious.
It is, and this ontology isn't just a static blueprint. It's a living, breathing model that's constantly updated with new data from all corners of the organization.
So it's like having a digital brain for the company that can see everything happening in real time.
That's a great way to put it. And here's the key. They've also attached business rules and logic to this ontology. So it's not just about representing what is, but also how things work and why decisions are made.
So they've encoded the company's knowledge and decision-making processes into this ontology. That sounds incredibly powerful.
It is. It allows them to do things like automate complex business processes, identify and mitigate risks, and even make real-time decisions based on a constantly evolving understanding of the situation.
Can you give me a concrete example of how this plays out, like in practice?
Sure. Imagine a retail company that's facing a sudden supply chain disruption. With Palantir's ontology-driven approach, an AI agent could automatically analyze the situation, taking into account inventory levels, customer demand, shipping costs, and even social media sentiment.
So it's like having an AI crisis management team that can spring into action and recommend the best course of action.
Exactly. And it's not just about reacting to crises. Palantir's ontology-driven approach is being used to optimize everything from marketing campaigns to financial investments to even talent acquisition.
Wow, that's really impressive. These case studies have definitely opened my eyes to the power and potential of ontology-driven AI. It seems like we're just scratching the surface of what this technology can do.
I completely agree. As the field continues to evolve and more organizations embrace this approach, I think we're going to see even more incredible applications emerge.
Okay, I'm officially hooked on this topic. But before we get too carried away with future predictions, let's take a step back and compare ontology-driven AI to other AI approaches that are out there.
That's a great idea. In part 3, we'll explore how this approach stacks up against other methods like large language models and discuss the future trends and developments we can expect to see.
Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into ontology-driven AI. We've explored the core concepts, seen some pretty amazing real-world applications, and now it's time to kind of look ahead. What does the future hold for this technology?
Well, the future is looking bright and complex. One trend I'm particularly excited about is this push towards the standardization of domain ontologies.
Okay, break that down for me. What does standardization mean in this context, and why is it so important?
Right now, a lot of companies are building their own ontologies from scratch. It's like everyone is inventing their own language.
Yeah.
But imagine if we had widely accepted ontologies for different fields like healthcare or finance or manufacturing.
Yeah, it'd be like having a universal translator for AI systems. They can share information and collaborate much more effectively.
Exactly. Standardization would streamline development, reduce errors, and accelerate the adoption of ontology-driven AI across industries. And there are already some initiatives underway to make this happen. Organizations like the W3C and a bunch of industry groups are working on developing standard ontologies.
So it's like creating a digital library of knowledge blueprints that anyone can just use and build upon. That's a fantastic vision. What else is on the horizon?
Another really exciting area is this growing integration of ontology-driven AI with other AI approaches, particularly large language models or LLMs.
We touched on this idea of hybrid systems earlier, but it sounds like there's even more potential there.
Absolutely. LLMs are amazing at natural language processing and generating creative text, but they can sometimes lack the precision and reasoning capabilities of ontology-driven systems. But what if we could combine the strengths of both approaches?
We'd have AI that is both articulate and intelligent, capable of understanding complex information and communicating it in a way that humans can understand.
Exactly. Imagine an AI assistant that can not only answer your questions, but also explain its reasoning in a clear, logical way, backed by the knowledge contained in an ontology. That would really revolutionize how we interact with AI.
Okay, I'm sold on the hybrid approach, but I'm also remembering those challenges we talked about, like the complexity of building and maintaining ontologies. Is there any hope of making that process a little bit easier?
There is. Researchers are exploring ways to automate parts of the ontology learning process using, you guessed it, AI itself.
So we could have AI that helps build and maintain other AIs. That's kind of mind-blowing.
It is. Specifically, they're using LLMs to analyze large amounts of text, extract key information, and automatically update ontologies. This would free up human experts to focus on, the more complex aspects of ontology design.
That would be a huge step forward. It would make ontology-driven AI much more accessible and scalable.
And as those individual AI agents become more capable, we can expect to see the rise of what's being called ontology-driven multi-agent ecosystems.
Multi-agent ecosystems. That sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie.
It might sound futuristic, but it's closer than you think. Think of a smart city where different AI agents are managing traffic flow or energy consumption, emergency services, and a bunch of other critical
That's
functions.
a lot of AI agents running around.
Ah,
How would they all coordinate and work together effectively?
well, that's where ontologies come in. A shared ontology, or a set of interoperable ontologies, would act as the common language for all these agents. They would all have this shared understanding of the city's infrastructure, resources, and goals.
So it's like giving each agent a map of the city and a rule book for how to interact with other agents that would enable them to work together seamlessly, like a well-coordinated team.
Precisely. And this concept can be applied to any domain where complex tasks can be broken down and distributed among those specialized agents, from things like manufacturing and logistics to healthcare and scientific research.
This is starting to sound like a future where humans and AI are working side by side, each contributing their unique strengths.
And that brings us to another crucial trend, the increasing importance of human-AI collaboration facilitated by ontologies.
Okay, I'm intrigued. How do ontologies improve the teamwork between humans and AI?
Well, ontologies can make AI more transparent and trustworthy. If an AI system can explain its reasoning by referencing the ontology, it's much easier for humans to understand and validate its decisions.
So it's like giving humans a window into the AI's thought process. It makes the AI less of a black box and more of a trusted collaborator.
Exactly. This transparency is essential for building trust and ensuring that AI is used ethically and responsibly.
It seems like ontologies play a vital role in bridging the gap between humans and AI, making it possible for us to work together more effectively.
They do. And as AI becomes more integrated into our lives, this ability to collaborate and communicate effectively will be more critical than ever.
This has been a truly fascinating exploration. We've gone from the basic building blocks of ontologies to a vision of the future where AI is seamlessly integrated into our world.
And it's clear that ontology-driven AI has the potential to reshape industries, solve those complex problems, and ultimately create a better future.
I couldn't agree more. As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought. As AI becomes increasingly sophisticated, it's important to remember that we have a role to play in shaping its development. By understanding the technologies that power AI like ontologies, we can make informed decisions about how we want to integrate AI into our lives and ensure that it's used for good. So keep exploring, keep learning, and keep asking those big questions. Thanks for joining us on this journey.